She seemed lost in thought for a few moments before she once again decided to continue. It was fine for a while. The Uchiha woman was able to cast better Jinjutsu, and her affinity for fire was greatly amplified. I found out later that the Sharingan was capable of being inherited by her children, whose descendants became famous for using the Sharingan in battle. No one even questioned how they suddenly sprouted a Dojutsu. Everyone assumed that's what they inherited from the sage, but had decided to keep the ability hidden until then. But I didn't really care. Naruto just frowned. His personal experience with the Uchiha was limited to the knowledge that they were supposed to be in charge of the police force, but he'd never had any confrontation with them yet. The demoness smirked. I was particularly impressed when the chakra viewing capacity of the Sharingan and the improved memory it granted enabled them to copy the shinobi techniques just by viewing them. That wasn't something I originally intended, but unexpected results were always highly probable in experiments, which is why I didn't directly experiment on my own eyes. However, one of the Uchiha changed everything. She sighed and looked away for a moment, before continuing again in a more subdued tone. Even though she didn't like being reminded of this, it was required to make the boy understand everything properly. Uchiha Madara and his brother, Uchiha Izuna, were able to attain the Mangenkyo Sharingan, a stage which I did not intend to be unlocked in the prototype. But I let them have it, curious of its effects. Of course, just because I did not intend it to happen didn't mean I was unprepared for it. Just in case someone activated Mangenkyo, a fail-safe seal embedded within the very structure of the eye started blinding the user with every use. This rendered it nearly useless in the long run, but gave me enough data to complete assessing its capabilities and effects upon the Uchiha's death. But that damn Madara. Kibi spat out the man's name like it was poison, startling her newly formed disciple before she managed to regain her composure. He found a way around my seal. I'll admit I'm no genius in Ninjutsu, but it was supposedly impossible for anyone but me to know how the seal worked and how to remove it. As far as I knew, I thought my plans were perfect. I've seen Ka-chan practice Ninjutsu at home, but it doesn't seem like anything that would work the way you describe. You won't understand now. It took me thousands of years to get that technique perfected. Simply put, I can use my Yoki to modify even extremely minute things, like the building blocks of living beings. Not wanting to get entwined in something he couldn't understand now, Naruto moved on to something he did. So, how did Madara get around your seal? The demoness grimaced. Madara took his brother's eyes and implanted them in his own eye sockets. Because of the way I designed it, his brother's seal was useless on him, and he gained the eternal Mangenkyo Sharingan. Now that I was not prepared for... not only did both the siblings Madara and Izuna attain Mangenkyo, but Madara found a way around the blinding seal which prevented his eyes from getting weaker with time. The eternal Mangenkyo Sharingan strengthened his eyes to a level where he was able to obtain some of my powers, including eternal youth. I could not just let someone use my powers like that, so I decided to end my observation and eliminate the failed experiment. Even though Naruto was extremely smart for his age, he still didn't understand some of the things the vixen was telling him, but he got the basic idea. Madara was already on Naruto's worst scum list, right above Minato Namikaze himself. These were the guys who would kill their brothers, sisters, sons, and lovers for their goals. Madara's goal was to obtain more power, and Minato's goal was the protection and strengthening of the village. Having his own father, at least by blood, condemn him to such a life was much worse than having some random person do it. Sigh escaped his lips. So is that why you attacked Konoha? Kibi frowned, which Naruto thought was because she was yet again reminded of the supposedly bad incident. He sympathized with her. No, I had no idea where he was. I can only get in Uchiha's memories after their death, until I was sealed here, and no one I got the memories from at that time had any idea of Madara's whereabouts. I had no choice but to wait for Madara to show himself. It was on the day of your birth that he killed an Uchiha while sneaking in and out of Konoha. When I found him running away a few miles away from this village, I told him his history and proceeded to take what was rightfully mine. It's not like he could have struggled much against me. I let my guard down though when he didn't protest at all and willingly let me remove his left eye. And then he cast a powerful genjutsu on me to save his right Sharingan. I was able to break out of it, of course, but that momentary lapse was all he needed to escape. I got a sample of the bloodline back, but I did not like being tricked by a pathetic human. I was pissed off, so to relieve some frustration, I went on a rampage. I eventually ended up in the nearby village of Konoha. Again, I was not expecting a mere human to be able to summon a being stronger than me, and it just had to be the Shinigami. He already hates me, she pouted, and then I ended up here, in your dirty little mind. It took him a moment to absorb everything she said, and then he finally caught up to her last words. I don't have a dirty mind. It's a sewer. The blonde grumbled, but decided not to retort. It wouldn't hurt to be at least on semi-friendly terms with the voice in his head. He had no fetish for headaches. So you attacked Konoha because you were pissed off. That was why thousands of humans died by your hands. Paws. Or tails. Something. She shrugged. Pretty much, yes. She didn't understand what was so wrong with killing all those idiots. Not like they wouldn't have died in a while anyway. Humans were like that. One moment they were there, and then just a little bit later, they're all wrinkly and on the verge of death. For an ancient immortal like her, their lives held no value. Until her own depended on one anyway. The only reason I told you all this is because the Sharingan is now complete. Naruto's face scrunched up in confusion. I already potentially have the Rinnegan, so why do I even need? Did you forget already? I told you I'll combine them both to make something better. Naruto smiled nervously. It's sure to work, right? Kyuubi had to smirk at the way he seemed just a little excited underneath it all. I think I can do it. But since Rinnegan is genetically superior to Sharingan, even if I'm not entirely happy to admit it, first you need to activate your Rinnegan. That will be your first test, to be able to do that. If I activate the Sharingan before that, Rinnegan will just remove any weaker Dojutsu and take over, while Sharingan won't be able to do the same with Rinnegan, and I will be able to force a merger. It might hurt a little, but I'm sure it will work. Naruto gulped. The demoness couldn't quite contain the grin upon seeing his apprehension. Just you wait till your training begins. You're lucky to have such good genes, kiddo. Makes it easier to change them without much risk. The blonde blinked with a clueless expression, but I'm not wearing jeans. And please don't check my pockets without permission again. Oh, the redhead resisted the urge to smack herself. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't assume that he knows everything I'm talking about? I meant your blood, kind of. Get it? Naruto didn't, but he nodded anyway. Later, he'll have to ask Kaya-chan what his genes had to do with his blood. What's so special about my blood, though? Kyuubi grinned widely. Let's just say that you're not exactly normal, even if we ignore my presence here. He pouted cutely at not being answered properly, causing Kibai to giggle in amusement. Well, as long as I don't have to face the Shinigami again. He's not that bad, she shuddered. So, what do you think I should aim for? The demoness gave him a nonchalant shrug. Meh. Be as strong as possible so you don't die. No, aside from that, I don't want to fight for them. They hate me. Kyuubi's melodic laughter filled his mindscape. Naruto thought that it resembled his mother and sisters. Beautiful. When you're strong, people will want you to be on their side. And if you're not with them, then they'll want you dead. Konoha is no different. You will fight for no one but yourself if I have anything to say about it. I see. I suppose you're right in a way. I'll fight for. Now wait just a second. What? Don't run before you can crawl. I'll fight for this. I won't let anything happen to them. Blah blah. I don't want to hear it. As you are right now, you're useless and pathetic. You're fighting no one, and are worth nothing. First you train and grow strong, then you can think about what you want to do with that strength. Got it? The blonde grumbled. I get it. Looking at the supposedly demonic entity, he couldn't help but shiver. The resemblance she held to his mother was frightening. Flaming crimson hair, melodic voice, and beauty that made any other girl look like a dirty piglet in comparison. He thanked heavens for Kibai's whiskers, tails, slightly pointy ears, and red-slitted eyes, or he would have had trouble not thinking of her as family. One part of him wondered if she had taken this appearance specifically to make him let his guard down. But he put that aside for now. This is a lot to take in. Do you mind if I think about it alone for a few days? Sure, I'll be waiting. Kibi leaned back as she relaxed a bit once he disappeared from the mindscape. To be honest, the possibility of being dragged into Shinigami's stomach when her vessel died terrified her. She wasn't about to let Naruto die, ever, or at least until she found a way out. End flashback. It wasn't much of a debate, really. The decision was obvious. He'd only taken this time off because he just felt the need to come to terms with it completely before making such a commitment. In the back of his mind, Naruto was unnerved by how easily he was accepting a deal with a demon queen. But he quickly squashed that thought. So what if she was a demon? To the villagers, he was a demon too. It meant nothing. Nothing. Hi. Can you hear me? Yes? Naruto hesitated only a moment before he strengthened his resolve. I'm ready. He felt Kibai nod in acceptance. Excellent, excellent. I'll be training you for 12 months so that you can activate your bloodline. It won't be easy, but if you do as I say, I believe my vessel should be more than capable for doing it. Naruto grinned despite himself, feeling oddly happier from her praise and confidence in him. Let's do this then. Streets of Konoha, a year later. It was almost 11 at night on October 10th, and the villagers of Konoha were happily celebrating the Kaibai festival like they did every year. Festivity was in the air as drunken laughter and dancing figures waltzed throughout the village. Meanwhile, a small figure, presumably that of a 5-6-year-old child, could be seen gliding through the rooftops with ease. Naruto's training this past year had vastly increased his flexibility, strength, and stamina. Although he had yet to learn any kind of jutsu, whether it be nin or tai, he was quite content with his progress in a year. Not only had he come to like Kibai in the past year, the demoness herself seemed to have taken an unusual interest in him. From the Uzumaki boy's point of view, she had been just like his mother, kind and loving most of the time, strict when needed. While he didn't blindly trust her like he would for his mother and sister, he did hold her words in high regard. Most of the training Kaibai provided him with this past year focused not only on increasing his chakra reserves and control, but also to strengthen his body to the point where it would be able to handle the massive boost that Rinnegan might provide. Today he would see if his preparations would pay off as he had hoped. He didn't want to disappoint his mentor and himself. Regardless of all that, he wanted to get this situation dealt with as soon as possible. All of it seemed to make him uneasy. The risk was high, and his chances were questionable despite all of Kibai's assurances. His attire didn't particularly appeal to him either. He was running through the streets wearing an orange eyesore of a jumpsuit. He didn't have anything against the orange color. He liked it very much, as a matter of fact. But that jumpsuit was just plain hideous and uncomfortable. Kibi had told him that he needs to be placed in a life-and-death situation to be able to activate the Rinnegan. Fortunately or unfortunately, in this village it was a constant life-and-death struggle for Naruto whenever he wasn't accompanied by his mother or sister. Naruto felt a smile form on his face as he recalled all the hard work he had done this past year. He had been sneaking away from his twin sister and training to improve his physical and spiritual strength as well as control. As a result, not only his physical capabilities, but his chakra capacity and control also improved greatly. When he had started, his chakra control wasn't something to take pride in, no thanks to his naturally large reserves caused by his Uzumaki heritage. But he had worked harder than any child his age should and eventually overcome his problems. That didn't mean being an Uzumaki was a disadvantage to his training. In fact, it was quite the opposite. The godlike stamina helped him greatly when it came to the physical aspects of the training. Kasumi's hurt look whenever he came back a bit battered and bruised from his training always made him wince. He had the distinct impression that she thought the villagers were physically abusing him, if the disdainful looks she gave them was anything to go by. He had to chuckle when some of them cringed. After all, you don't expect to see that much hatred and disgust in such a young girl's eyes. He felt bad for letting her cry alone because she thought that he was shielding her from harm and getting hurt because of her. But he just couldn't find the courage to tell them all about Kan-chan and his bloodline. Despite all that, he promised himself to tell her almost everything once he activated his bloodline. His little sister didn't deserve to suffer like that just because he was a bit afraid. He wasn't doing it without reason, though. He found out from Kibai that, today, he would either awaken the Rinnegan or die. That was why he didn't tell Kasumi about his training. She would never let him go risk his life willingly. That was the reason for all those preparations. There was only one chance, and if it didn't happen today, it would never happen. He had given it his all. Now it was time to see if that was enough. He would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous. In fact, he was so close to pissing his pants right now that Kibai was considering delaying the test for another year. Naruto, get a hold of yourself. You're ready, trust me. I wouldn't let you do this if you weren't. You know I don't like the idea of dying either. That calmed him down a bit. After all, she did have multiple millennia worth of experience, and she didn't want him to die. Or rather, she didn't want to die. But then again, one person popped all those ideas like a water balloon is popped by a needle. Madara did fuck up her plans plenty of times. That name made her blood boil. Not that she had any, it was all Yoki in her soul, but that was beside the point. He was planning on naming his kid Madara, if he had one. That will teach her for all that torture she calls training. The blonde shivered as a chill ran down his spine. Why do I feel like I just signed my own doom? 30 minutes later. Naruto was pissed. No, scratch that, he was furious. When he had left the compound, he expected a giant mob ready and waiting for him to help activate his bloodline. But what did he get? He'd been jumping around in an orange jumpsuit in between a crowd of drunken villagers, and the idiots didn't even notice him in their drunken haze. What was wrong with them? Can't they see there's a defenseless 6-year-old scapegoat amidst them to take their anger and hatred out on? What were they thinking, dancing around like utter morons? He gritted his teeth in anger as he realized this might just be much harder than he had thought. But Naruto Uzumaki didn't come unprepared. Far from it. Reaching into his thigh pocket, Naruto took out a scroll he had prepared just in case something like this happened. He wasn't skilled enough to create storage scrolls yet, so he had borrowed one of the empty ones lying around the Uzumaki compound. A small application of chakra, and out came a number of banners and costumes. Grinning, Naruto put the styrofoam L devil horns on his head, which he had handcrafted himself. He then wrapped a belt around his waist that conveniently had 9 orange tails attached, glittered for extra measure. To top it all off, he held up a huge banner supported by 2 long sticks. The slogan, "The Demon Brat's here, let's finish what the Yondaimgaka started," along with the picture of a childishly drawn 9-tailed fox wiggling her ass displayed proudly in bright red color. One by one, people noticed it and gaped. A particularly stupid villager who seemed more intoxicated than the others felt it appropriate to read the poster out aloud. The Dwemen Brach here. Lech finit ish what de Yondamibwaka started? Wiviggle wivil. Apparently, he didn't feel the need to not call his beloved Yondami an idiot. A roar of anger met his statement, causing Naruto to roll his eyes. Finally, good-for-nothing idiots. Yeah, let's kill the demon brat. He's alone. Villagers couldn't have been more ecstatic. For the first time in 6 years, the demon brat was alone. It took them a while to believe their luck, But now that they knew it was real and not some drunken illusion, they couldn't be any happier. Their wishes had been granted. There was no demon slut nearby to help him. There was no risk. The brat was weak. They could kill him. And they will, painfully. Oh yes, the demon had caused them so much pain. They couldn't just let it die easily. They would torture him till he begged to die, and then they would torture him some more. Maybe. If Naruto hadn't been kept under tight security of his mother for most of his life, the villagers might not have been this violent on getting an opportunity to beat him. Mystery did nothing to quell their fears and suspicions. Maybe. If Kasumi was with him, they might have been afraid of doing anything due to the possibility of destabilizing her, and causing a, possibly, village-ending explosion, or maybe, making her go berserk. But right now they had nothing to fear and no one to stop them. As it was, they were surprised to get their hands on him and more than a little happy to get a chance to extract some sweet revenge. The chase continued pointlessly for a bit longer with more and more people joining in. But all of them were civilians. The shinobi skillfully ignored the mob if they stumbled upon it. They really didn't care what happened to the brat. They might even be a little happy. It's not like they were under orders to protect him. Those few who might have actually cared weren't really going around checking random crowds of running people on a festival. Things like this were expected. Naruto was eventually chased outside of the village gates, into the forest a few miles away from Konoha. By now he was getting worried, but knew he had to do this. He had prepared for a whole year. After going through countless chakra control exercises, improving and strengthening his body, training in secret, mindscape training, he wasn't going to back out now. I can do this. I have to do this. Naruto realized, with determination blazing in his eyes, that the villagers had surrounded him. It was now or never. Either he will get what he wanted, or he'll die a very painful death. They were coming closer with weapons of various sizes and shape, and some with just their bare fists. Naruto's heart started working overtime as adrenaline started flooding his system. His chakra flared wildly and his eyes were wide, capturing every single movement around him and calculating the threat. As they charged, his brain started working overtime as the blonde tried to cope up with the possibility of imminent death that he was currently unable to avoid. Naruto tried to dodge as much as he could, but they were too many and he didn't have a Byakugan to cover his blind spots. Thankfully, he was prepared for the attack and had brought some of the kunai his mother had given him, so he was parrying various blows and keeping the mob at a distance. He left the ones with panic seals at the compound. He didn't want his Kaya-chan getting tied up in this. It would all be pointless if he was saved without activating his bloodline. Unfortunately, he was still a 6-year-old despite all his training. His small body couldn't keep up with the assault for too long, and before he knew it, he was taking hits. It started with nothing serious, just glancing blows, and then a hard object hit him in the back, making him stumble forwards. Then came knife from the right and a hammer from the left simultaneously, but he was able to block them both at the same time. He watched in slow motion as another villager used a butcher's knife in an attempt to cleave his torso in half. Is this it? I am sorry, Kaya-chan, Kasumi-chan, for causing you the pain of losing me, if I don't survive this. Please forgive me. In his mindscape, the demoness couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. She was afraid that it may not work, but this opportunity had to be taken. Regardless, the child's behavior was still amusing. He should be worried about his survival, not what others would feel if he died. Mortals are just so stupid sometimes. Suddenly, there was a rush of information in Naruto's brain and a sharp stinging feeling in his eyes. Acting on instinct, not even realizing what he was doing, he channeled all of his chakra into his eyes and chanted the words that spelled only doom to those who were unfortunate enough to be nearby. Shinra Tensei. Chapter end. Not very sophisticated, but it's a start. Let me know your thoughts if you have any. Title: Chapter 2. Origin. Shinra Tensei A heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent God. A dull shockwave flowed out of the blonde, carrying enough force to justify the technique's name. Trees and bones broke apart under the crushing power, dust blew up, and the ground groaned under the pressure. Backbones snapped like twigs, and organs burst like balloons. It all happened so fast that none of the villagers had a chance to even comprehend their imminent doom. Not even Kibi had been expecting the destructive power that had suddenly burst forth from the small blonde child, and had torn everything around him asunder. The villager who had been holding the butcher's knife and had tried to cleave Naruto in half was blown back by a power so great that for a moment he felt as if a deity was crushing him like a bug in his fist. The life bled out of his eyes as he suffered more pain than he had ever thought possible, even more than what he'd been hoping to inflict on his victim. The feeling of having one's organs getting crushed from within, combined with the massive shockwave that rippled throughout his body, proved to be too much for his brain to handle. Everyone within 20 meters of the boy suffered similar fates, whereas others who were further away from the area didn't get hit hard enough to liquefy their internal organs, thus surviving the initial blow. Unfortunately, just because they survived the initial blow didn't mean that they would survive the one that followed. The survivors, along with various stones, both sharp and blunt, were harshly flung away by the force of gravity itself. None could hope to survive when the planetary force itself is against them. The people in the mob felt their bones being crushed, backs being snapped, internal organs hemorrhaged and pierced by their own weapons until their body and mind could take no further. Their deaths were far more horrific and painful than those who had died before them. Agonized screams filled the air as they struggled to move, breathe, speak, or just stay alive. Slowly, their painful whimpering and moans came to a stop as they succumbed to eternal darkness. Even as the last one of them died, he managed to gasp his dying words out in hopes of causing the blonde boy some emotional pain. "You monster! You really are a demon!" The dying man conveniently ignored the fact that he was about to brutally torture a small child, and died thinking of himself as one of the purest beings to grace the planet. Unfortunately for the now dead man, Naruto wasn't paying any attention to anyone around him. Dead or dying, he had more important matters to attend to. That was too close a brush with death than what was expected. He had only been that close to dying once before, and had absolutely no intention to face it again. The blonde still had the vivid memory of the park incident 3 years ago. If it wasn't for his Kaya-chan, he would have been dead, and who knows what would have happened to his sister. Naruto shook his head in an effort to vanquish the unnecessary thoughts from his mind. The 6-year-old let his eyes skim around and did a quick body count to see if he had missed any culprits whom he would have to deal with personally. But before the boy could finish that thought, he was interrupted by Kiyobe's soft voice in his head. Even though she was surprised by his technique previously, she had seen too much and been around too long to lose track of her objectives because of such surprises. She had already finished her preparations for the Sharingan implant and didn't want to take any chances by waiting any longer than necessary. "Just give me a moment, Naruto. I need to implant the Sharingan in your eyes to make it fully compatible with your Rinnegan, while it's still forming." That was the last thing the blonde heard before his world went black. 7 hours later, Kasumi felt as if her legs were on fire as she dashed past the trees that seemed to envelop her surroundings at speeds. Her small body shouldn't be able to carry her. As she ran through the forests, her eyes darted in all directions, worriedly searching for her brother. Today was their birthday, and like every single day the past year, he'd gone missing once again. It had become so usual that normally she would just worry herself at home and not go looking for him. But in her heart, she knew that her brother was in danger, and that scared her to no end. She just knew what she was feeling was true, and if her Oni-chan was in danger, she had to get there as fast as she could. Ka-chan is going to return from her mission soon. Please be okay, please. Breathing heavily, she sprinted once again in the direction where she could feel her brother was at. Whether it was because they were twins, or because they contained parts of the same entity, she didn't know, didn't care. Even as her 6-year-old body screamed in pain of overuse, she continued to run in his direction. The only thing she could think of was to get to her brother as soon as possible. Tears trickled down her face as she stopped dead in a clearing. The scene she had stumbled across could only be described as a massacre, with hundreds of mangled corpses laying in a crater. The corpses that were closer to the center seemed as if an akimichi had sat upon them, squished, their internal organs exposed in a disarray. The little girl was almost about to pass out from the display of blood and gore. But she held herself together in hopes of finding her brother and saving him. Her breathing grew ragged as her eyes fell upon her brother's body in the dead center of the crater. But she somehow managed to stay conscious, hoping against hope. Kasumi knew that the possibility of her brother surviving what none of the others had without taking any damage was next to impossible, not with this level of disaster. So, at the very least, he must be injured, all the more reason for her to hurry. In a daze, she made her way through the corpses towards the only one that mattered to her. As she got close, she let out a relieved breath. His clothes were torn, and a layer of blood coated his skin and tatters of clothes. It was clear to her that he was attacked and cut up quite badly, but he was breathing. "Whoever made you suffer, Oni-chan, I will never forgive. Never forgive." She shook his shoulder in an effort to wake him up, but he didn't respond. After 10 minutes of constantly trying to wake him up, Kasumi was still on top of her brother, shaking him repeatedly. She wasn't strong enough to carry him all the way back to the compound, and was afraid that if she made a mistake, his injuries might end up even worse. Finally, her efforts yielded results, in the form of a small groan from Naruto. "Oni-chan, wake up!" His sister's voice somehow managed to reach him, even with the huge headache he was experiencing. Naruto lay there on his back, with Kasumi sitting on top of him, shaking his upper body in an effort to wake him up. She was worried and furious at the same time, worried for her brother's well-being and furious at herself for not being there for him. It had been an entire year since he had just randomly started to disappear from around her, and returned with bruises and other small injuries. It wasn't anything life-threatening, but it was enough to concern her every time she saw him like that. She didn't know what was happening to him. Ka-chan never noticed, as she wasn't around most of the time, and for some reason Naruto seemed to heal much faster than what should be possible. By the time Kushina arrived, Naruto was already back to perfect health. Kasumi often sobbed to herself when she was alone. She could only imagine what had caused all those bruises on Naruto's body. The redhead assumed the worst, thinking that her brother was being physically abused by the villagers. Naruto's current condition was more than enough proof for Kasumi to know she was right. He was constantly being abused by the villagers, while she herself never once got touched. He was enduring it all alone while his selfish sister enjoyed a life of comfort. She was safe at the cost of her brother's safety. What kind of sister am I? I should have been there for him. She only blamed herself for not being strong enough to share his pain, or to make it go away. The redhead had tried to make sure not to leave his side, but no matter how hard she tried, he would just slip away without her noticing. It was only thanks to Naruto's training with the Ki Bibai that he was ever able to avoid his sister's watchful eyes, but she didn't know that. To her, it seemed as though she was careless and ignorant for leaving her brother alone like that, and by the time she found him again, he looked like he had been through a paper shredder multiple times. The fact that he refused to tell her what happened only solidified the girl's belief that he was being... Ugh. Naruto groaned as he felt some kind of liquid hit his cheeks. A flash of familiar crimson hair caught the blonde's attention even through his blurred vision. What the hell was his sister doing here? Wasn't she supposed to be in the compound doing... Wait, she didn't really do anything much without him. And this was their birthday. Shit! Is she crying? What in the world happened, Kai-chan? Naruto questioned mentally, still feeling somewhat disoriented. Sorry, Naruto. You passed out due to the pain of fusing the Rinnegan and sharing him together, as well as having chakra exhaustion from your technique. It's been 7 hours. I think your sister got worried and decided to search for you. She must have been looking for you. How she found you, though, is beyond me. But that's beside the point. The thing is, My theory was a success. As the female demon gleefully informed her container of her success, her voice was filled with so much pride that she sounded like a mad scientist who had just discovered how to reanimate corpses. Naruto, meanwhile, caught on to something that she had let slip from her tongue without intending to. You mean you weren't sure if the fusion would even work? Hebe chuckled nervously. She wasn't really what one could call a social being, so she wasn't used to holding conversations often, even after spending an entire year instructing Naruto. Since she had spent most of her life alone, she wasn't used to keeping a leash on her tongue, and that often tended to backfire whenever she was talking with her container. The demoness chuckled sheepishly as she admitted her fault. Ha 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 ha. Well, you see, there was this little itty-bitty, well, not so bitty, possibility of you losing the Rinnegan that I forgot to mention. You forgot! Forgot! He mentally yelled at her in disbelief. There was no way she had forgotten something like that. She obviously didn't tell him on purpose. Fortunately or unfortunately, he didn't recall what the Kibai had told him about demons and how they're bound to their word and thus can't lie in their earlier conversation. If he had, he would have been able to conclude that the demonic inability to lie was just a big lie in itself, or that the Kibi was actually telling him the truth. Either way would have shown him that she wasn't the most reliable person around. Hey, geez, calm down. It all went well, all right? Now you have what I told you are going to get. So let's just forget that there was a worse possibility, she tried to reassure her container. Fine, but... While having the internal conversation with Kibi, Naruto had completely forgotten about his crying twin, which in turn just caused her to worry more, racking her body with hysterical sobs. Her thoughts were running wild as she remained completely oblivious to the conversation being held between her brother and his prisoner. Maybe he's sick of me letting him get beat up like this all alone and doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Oh no, what if he hates me now? She didn't know what she would do if it ever came to that, how she would even survive without her brother being there for her. Other than her mother, he's been the only one she had enjoyed being with in all her life. More. Tears fell from her crystal blue eyes as she didn't know how injured he was right now. It was somewhat dark, but the moon was full, allowing her to see various sorts of weapons on the dead bodies of the villagers lying around her brother. She didn't know what was going on, and hovering over her brother's body while in plain view of hundreds of dead bodies didn't really raise her spirits either. She once again tried to coax him back with her soft voice. Anna-chan. I don't care if he hates me now. First I have make sure he's safe, and then bring him back home. After that, I'll do anything I can to win him back. And even if that isn't enough, at least he will be there.